as like tough as the situation is, like losing a parent young, it's like you really see who your true friends are and like who steps up and just kind of has the maturity to, like get through it and all with you. But I mean, it really kind of narrows your circle, but I think for the better.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back or welcome to Grief Uncensored.
I'm Yako.
And I'm Julia. We believe that your grief is your own and no one can tell you what to do with it. But we're glad that you're here and we're glad that you found us.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we do a feature loved one series where you can send in a picture and a caption of your loved one and we post it in honor of them. We also have a Facebook page. You can go like us there. And we have a Facebook group for other young grieving adults going through similar experiences where you can just talk to a bunch of people who can relate. We also have a TikTok where we make unhinged grief talks. And then we have recently started a Twitter, so go follow us on there. And finally, we have a visual version of our podcast on YouTube. And if you want to go watch us, you can go there.
This week, we have another guest. Her name is Madison Brockmeyer. She's in her mid-20s like we are, and she lost her mom 7 months ago. During these past 7 months, she's learned so much, experiencing things she never thought she would have to experience with her work, family, and friends. So she's here with us today to share some of those things with us.
Without further ado, let's welcome Madison. All right. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We're so excited to have you come on and share your story. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I found your guys' podcast like probably month 2 or 3 after I lost my mom. So kind of backstory, I'm in my 20s and I lost my mom 7 months ago, pretty suddenly. I mean, she had kind of been fighting some health issues and doctors could never find what the diagnosis was. She would like become paralyzed overnight and she had to learn how to like walk and talk all over again. And this was kind of fall of 2020. And then she would get better and be like completely normal. And then she'd wake up one day again and like couldn't get out of bed. So it was like a fight kind of journey of finding answers. And then in January, she got COVID. And that kind of was her kind of card to kind of join the next life. So yeah, it was pretty sudden. I mean, I think when she first got sick, I was like, I think just 20 years old or maybe 21. Yeah, I was 21. And it's like, you see your parent in this kind of new life and it's hard to watch and you kind of go through those emotions of like not knowing really like your old mom anymore. And like that mom that she was like so fun and active and outgoing. And then, you hope that there's a diagnosis and there never is. So I feel like my grieving kind of started there, but I never thought that she would, die at the age that she was. I mean, she was like, I think 62. She had us kids pretty late, but yeah, she was like always just so healthy and active. And so like, I know I listened to your guys' episode, I think a couple weeks ago of like, when they're sick or like they get cancer, you kind of grieve that part of them, but then it's like a whole different grievance once, they die and you're not ready for it all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No amount of anticipatory grief even prepares you for, the grief that comes after their actual passing. So
yeah, and it also just feels unfair because you're now just grieving for like fucking 4 years or however long you're sick when, like you but like should have been enjoying your life like a normal person, but instead you're carrying this horrible weight with you and continue to do so after, of course, too.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I like would always see like people post like, oh, my parents, like, until you're in it and like you've lost a parent, there is no like words. Or like when I first lost her, those first couple months, like a part of me, I mean, I think everyone can say like it doesn't feel real. Like I like still thought, and especially because I'm located in Seattle and my parents had recently moved to Oregon. So like I only saw them, for like special kind of occasions or like when I could get off work. And so it's that like long distance kind of thing that like you always still think they're around. And then when that happens, it's like, oh shit, like I can't call you, I can't text you. So
it's the idea of them being elsewhere but existing somewhere but just not with you right now. And when they're gone, it's hard to like really think about how they're literally nowhere on earth anymore.
Yeah, that's a fucking thought, isn't it? Like we said the other week, like the permanence of that thought is
what gets me every time.
Yeah.
It got me this morning. It got me last night.
Yeah, exactly.
It haunts me.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how I'll ever be okay with that, the permanence of it. But anyway, more about you, more about your story.
I don't know either, Yako, honestly.
So definitely the first couple months, I would say, like, just shock and denial almost. And then luckily, I mean, I found you guys and I found your guys' podcast, and it really helped because I kind of had a friend falling out during month 4, maybe 3 after my mom. And 2 of like my best friends since high school who had been there for me during like once we called hospice and like that whole kind of week of like waiting for hospice to announce that like my mom had died. And they were definitely like my support system then. They traveled to California for my mom's funeral. And so they were like really my 2 best friends who I shared everything with. And things definitely kind of took a turn and showed me that like people, especially at this age, cannot even like fucking deal with the reality of it all. And I pretty much like my coping mechanism, and always kind of has been when like things go wrong, is I tend to go MIA. Like I would rather deal with it on my own and like not involve other parties, because I never want people, I don't know, like feel bad for me or like make me feel like I'm putting my issues on them. And so I like during my mom passed in February, like in May, I took that month and I really like traveled places and like took time off of work and like tried to fill a void to like and make myself happier. And I mean, I can definitely sit here and say like I went MIA to some people, but they definitely took that as the wrong way and pretty much kind of threw everything back in my face and said, you made us put our lives on hold like to deal with you, and that like friendship is a 2-way street and you haven't been giving us like
oh my god
you. And I remember in that moment like feeling like what the like I was so just like, how could someone ever even like say that? And especially at the point of like I was so vulnerable in the fact of even like letting them come to my mom's funeral and like seeing that me, that like I never want people to see, like that is a very intimate like thing. And so I was just in shock. And I remember like thinking, does this happen to like anyone else, or these like girls just like so like shocking? And so I remember during that time I started therapy, and I like, you know, tried to like understand how like betrayed I felt by 2 like really close people. And that was kind of like my first realization of like people really don't know what to say or do. But looking back, like if I have to give advice to any friend that's like a friend to someone during this time, like don't ever make them feel like, you know, you put your life on hold or had to deal with them.
That is so fucked up.
Honestly, I'm like sitting here, I can't even believe that they did that. But also like I can, because I know exactly the kind of betrayal that you're explaining, and it's really bringing me back. It's really bringing me back 2 years ago, you know? Like I will never understand my friends' actions, and like I don't think I ever will. And it's so hard to even talk about sometimes, honestly, because this time where our friends totally like betrayed us is literally the worst time of our whole life. So to ever have to revisit that is like revisiting the day that my mom died, you know? And it brings up loads and loads of horrible, horrible feelings, things that I never want to think about again. Like things that I felt that I never want to feel again, but I don't even want to think about how I had to feel them. And like that's how really bad it was,
Yeah.
And like we had an episode about secondary losses where I kind of, dove into losing my friends, but it is a common thing to have people not know what to do. And I think some people took it a little more far than just not knowing what to do, by saying like what your friend said, like you're not giving enough into our friendship right after your mom dies. I
Yeah.
mean, it's mind-boggling the actions that people do. It really truly is. But I mean, on top of that, we're also young, and
True.
I feel like every person I talk to has had a falling out with their friends from college or from high school, like
Yeah.
around this time, whether their mom died or not. But I
Yeah.
think our loss added a whole nother layer, which wasn't just like, oh yeah, I had a falling out with my friend. It was like my friend betrayed me when my mom died. And it was the most hurtful thing of my whole life, worse than
Right.
any other breakup or betrayal that I've ever experienced in my whole life.
Yeah. And I want to also acknowledge that like it's common to have like falling outs with your friends because you feel like they don't understand you or like they're not maybe trying hard enough to. And maybe you also kind of just realize that like you guys are just different now, like have different interests. And now there's no social capacity to try to bury that difference or, like hide it in a way. Like sometimes you have friends that you just like go out with and maybe you're just like not that person anymore. So you lose friends in that way too. But for you guys, like it's a different experience because your friend, your best fucking friend, not even just any friend, literally did actions to deliberately hurt you. And that's like totally a different realm of pain because it's like scary almost that their true colors are coming out in this way. And it's in the absolute worst fucking time, like you guys both said. So it's like almost frightening how they like turn into a completely different person that you don't even recognize.
No, you're so fucking right. Like it was really scary. And I think that also added a whole nother layer because I was realizing that these friends that I literally, well, honestly, just this one friend that I had called my best friend for several years since college, like I was delusional. I had realized how delusional I was when it came to this person and their tendencies to be horrible. And like it was a huge fucking slap in the face too, to realize like why was I surrounding myself with such a negative person, somebody who could even have the capacity to do this to you, to a friend, to someone who was very close with them for years. And, of course, that's why the betrayal hurt so bad, on top of my mom dying, obviously, too.
Right.
But then on top of that, I was looking at myself like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Julia? Like, how did you not set a boundary with this person before? Like, this person is horrible. Like, you looked past all these red flags in a friendship and you shouldn't have. And now you're in this place. Like, you did it to yourself, basically, is what I was saying to myself at a certain point. And I was blaming myself. I was like, I shouldn't have even let this person get close to me. And I was like blaming myself too.
Yeah, I definitely did that too. And I think that's just kind of, I mean, it's when you put so much trust into someone and you like spend so much time and you share vulnerable moments and that ends. And I think, especially when I think of these two girls, like the manipulation, almost like the like change of story that they tried to make it seem like, which it wasn't at all. Like, I mean, I definitely relate to that. I sat there like, what did I do? Like, am I a shitty friend? Like, did I not step up? Like when they maybe had things, it's that like
same
psychological factor that you're like,
yes, you're so right. I completely relate. Like it was crazy. I felt so manipulated and I felt like I was coming out of like a manipulative, emotionally abusive relationship. And this is a really good example of a secondary loss after grief, after your big loss, because it was like going through a breakup. That's a really common secondary loss. Like when you have a parent or someone really close to you that dies and then your partner can't handle it. So you guys break up and it's fucking dirty and it's ugly. Like for me, it was that, except it wasn't my partner. It was my best friend. And, it's like, it brings up so much emotions for me, honestly. Like I'm choking on my words a little bit because that's really how bad it was. And this was 2 years ago, guys. So it's not like it's fresh, but the hurt and the pain and the way that I felt like manipulated and how I felt this person was like manipulating other people to not be there for me and basically twisting stories so that I didn't get the support I needed from my friends, from our friends. And sadly to say, it worked. I was basically alone, other than the friends that I've had since I was a kid that were there for me. And obviously, those people are amazing. And I'm lucky that I still have friends, because for a while, I felt that I was at a zero. I was at a level 0 with friends. Mm-hmm. Because I really was. Because my whole present, when I was living in San Diego at the time that my mom died, like I had a big group of friends, but basically that went to 0 after that, all because of like this falling out with this one person. And it really did teach me a lot. It taught me a lot, but it also fucking traumatized me beyond words, all because of the actions by this one person. And also me blaming myself. Like I do take some responsibility for allowing a person with such narcissistic tendencies to be in my life. But again, that's like a stupid blame game of like, oh, I'm going to blame myself because it's easier, you know?
I mean, honestly, for some people, it's not easy to look inward. So for both of you guys to even wrongfully like try to find reasons within yourself for why this occurred is like says a lot about who you guys are too, because a lot of people, something like that happens to them and they're like, oh, the other person's fucking stupid. And that says a lot, because every occasion or any problem that arises, they're always pointing the finger outward. And people like that usually are the problem. So, but you guys are really, I can tell, just really caring, compassionate people who really want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes that just comes and bites you in the ass. And that's the worst part about it, because you feel kind of like ignorant almost, or like taken advantage of. I don't know.
That's how it always is when you're on the other side of that stuff, when you come out of this and you come into your realization of everything that just had happened to you, and it feels horrible. Like it feels so horrible to finally uncover everything. It digs that isolation hole deeper. Like you're fucking 6 feet under.
Yeah.
And further.
I wanted to ask you, Madison, though, like with the 2 best friends that you had that you fell out with, did it like affect any other of your friendships, or was it just kind of like them 2 left and like that was it? Or not that was it, because it was a lot, but I'm just saying, like, did it have a ripple effect on your other friendships?
Oh yeah, I mean, like these 2 best friends of mine, we kind of also like created a group of like girlfriends, and like they were probably closer with some maybe than me, but I think back this time last year, like we did like, girls' nights and like brunches and went out and stuff. And I mean, I'm sure they probably twisted it. Like she wasn't there during like when we needed her. Like she's selfish, like she's spiraling because they saw me like, and admittedly say like, I definitely chose to go out more. I definitely coped with alcohol. And I mean, from bystanders from their side looking in, I mean, they like blatantly had said like, you've changed, like you're not the same person. And it's like, of course I'm not the fucking same person.
Yeah.
Like, you like went through what I did. Like, and I think especially with them, like we'd been friends since like sophomore year of high school. Like I hope to God I'm not the same person that
True.
met. I mean, I like, I moved away to college and like did things that kind of shaped me and changed me that maybe they didn't. And so I mean, they're all still friends with those group of girls and they all kind of unfollowed me off everything and they don't, so it affected other things. And definitely, I don't look at those other girls in that group because I wasn't as close, as maybe they were, but I just hate knowing that like, I'm sure they changed, the like story or whatever, or made it seem like I was the bitch when really like I didn't even know how to cope or get through the day myself. So
I will tell you that is the exact same thing that happened to me. Mm-hmm. So you are not alone in that. And I'm so sorry, because I know how fucking bad that sucks. And you have no control over it. And at the same time, you don't even have the energy to try and go, clear
Win
your
some people
name,
back. Yeah.
like
Exactly.
clear your name and win people back. Like, no, I'm trying to survive. Like, I literally like want to die at some points in my day. Like, I am rock bottom and further. So like, I don't have the energy to try and fight for my friends. Like, no, I'm just accepting the people who are actually here for me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, they had mentioned many times, like, like text us back, like you haven't replied like in hours. And I'm like, I can't even like fucking wake up and like get through a work day at this point in my life. So I'm sorry, but I'm not thinking like, oh, I need to text them back or like, oh, I need to reach out to like make plans. And I had specifically like mentioned to so many people like during right after my mom that like I don't want to be alone. Like I like work from home. So like during the work like week, I would be alone. But on the weekends, like I wanted to get out and almost like black out that even like this is going on in my normal life. Like I didn't want to be alone. And I had expressed that to them so many times. And it was always like, oh, like we don't want to drive like to where you are. Like, can you come this way? Like it was like me
Oh
having to
my
put
God.
effort where it's like I can't even have effort to like drive fucking 10 minutes down the road right now. So like just step up and be a friend. And they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad to have friends for so long. Like you said, you've known them since sophomore year of high school at this point, and you expect a certain level of them caring about you when you're in a really dark place and you had just lost your mom, like if friends are gonna friend, it's right now. And they just did not. And it's like so shocking because you're just wondering like what the fuck did I do to, deserve this? And you're also thinking if this happened to anyone else, if someone else's mom died randomly and tragically, like I would be not acting this way. So what is it with these people?
Yeah. And I think it's funny too, because like looking back at like those months, it was almost like when I think of like all my, I mean, I have like two really still best friends who like helped me and got me through so much during that time. But it was almost like like them with a competition of like others. Like, oh, we did this. Oh, we went to your mom's funeral. It's like, I didn't fucking ask you to go. You guys like, offered to go and like that was like nice or whatever. But like, I don't know, it was just like the competition thing. And I think even like still to this day, I mean, I think maybe you guys can relate to it's like people still kind of are like, oh, like, I was there during that. I don't know. It's just like the weirdest thing that people still kind of make comments of where it's like, this isn't like, do you want a fucking prize? Like, I don't know what you want to me to like say to you that other than like, yes, you were a great friend. And I think too, like, I look at myself and like, if roles were reversed, like, I just at least just like be there and don't like
Exactly.
use, the death and like how they've changed and
Yeah.
how they're now acting against
Yeah,
them.
and then don't do things that you're gonna literally later throw in someone's face. And that's like so annoying. And that can happen on like a really simple level of like, oh well, I did that for you. But it's like on this level, like, bro, no one asked you.
Like,
Like, why are you throwing it in my
you
face?
mean you're literally just being a good friend? Like, do you want an award for that? Because
Yeah.
like that's what you're supposed to do. Like sometimes I'm there for you and sometimes you're there for me and sometimes I'm fully there for you because your mom just died and I'm going to give you a couple months or longer to, start coming back. Like what? Like it's so shocking that you even have to explain something as simple as this. But it's like, damn, you really had one job and it was literally just to be my friend and you failed.
I think what like makes me more mad too, it's like, they like knew my mom and obviously like we, high school and like grew up and like she like, thought they were like so kind and like nice. And then it's like me looking back and I'm like, fuck you. Like she didn't even deserve to like, I don't even know. It's just
Resentment because now your mom thinks of them. The last thing she thought of them were these people are really good friends of my daughter, and then they go and betray you, and you're like, Mom, what the fuck? Look at this shit. And she's not even here to like get this updated image of these terrible people.
I know, right?
But I mean, I definitely like was, and I still have days like, when I'm upset and I think about like how really I'm left with only like a couple good friends when before like I had so many like acquaintances and friends and things, but
Mhm.
it really is just like an image of like who they are and their maturity. I mean, if
Right.
you can't step up and be mature and like, realize that like, oh shit, bad things happen to people and like, I don't know, it's just like the maturity thing of then I don't need you in my life if you can't like accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. I think that's exactly what my next comment was going to be, is that this does not have anything to do with you or me or whoever was the griever who felt betrayed by their friends. Like, it entirely has to do with them and
Yeah.
their capacity to be a good friend, to be a normal human being, to be just compassionate and empathetic. It all reflects on them. Like, it has nothing to do with you, because like I said earlier, like I was blaming myself a lot, like how I even got myself into this position in the first place, how I even allowed these people in my life in the first place. But at the end of the day, like, the blame is not on me, it's on them. Like, it doesn't reflect how I am,
Mhm.
how they're treating me. And that goes for everything and everyone. Even if it's someone in the fucking grocery store like being rude to you, like, that does not reflect on you, something wrong that you're doing. It reflects on them and how they are inside. And the same goes for this, and the same goes for everything else. That's on them. So like, don't put that on yourself. That would be my main advice for someone going through this.
Yeah. And I mean, I think like as like tough as the situation is, like losing a parent young, it's like you really see who your true friends are and like who steps up and just kind of has the maturity to, like get through it and all with you. But I mean, it really kind of narrows your circle, but I think for the better. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is for the better, but I don't think you see that right away.
Right.
I mean, to an extent, I did see it right away, because I was like, yeah, I don't want these people in my life. Like, fuck these people. But also, I was like, damn, like, I just went to having like two best friends and a group of a bunch of people in my circle, having always plans and fun things, and like, a big girl group, to literally having none of that. No two best friends, and the rest of the group, like you were saying earlier, Madison, like maybe you weren't super close with them, but you're still friends and good acquaintances. Like, it's literally gone in a blink of an eye. Like, like one day I'm included in everything. The next day, like, there's new group chats and I'm out and my mom's dead and I'm fucking depressed. And like, I don't even know what happened in a blink
Yeah.
of an eye.
yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I sit here now, like 4 months after all that, I can finally start to kind of realize like it was for the better and I don't like miss that friendship side anymore. But I mean, yeah, you probably won't see that until I don't know. It took me a lot of therapy to get there and like see it, but it still sucks. And I mean, yeah, like I
Exactly.
had to mute them on everything. I mean, even though they unfollowed me, I wasn't gonna be petty and unfollow all of them. But yeah, I just would rather not see it. So
Oh, totally. Like, you're right. It takes a while for it to stop really hurting your feelings so bad, and realizing like, okay, this was actually for the better. I think it took me like around the same. Like, I was so hurt for a long time. And then once a couple months passed, I'm like, okay, this was actually for the better. Like, I don't want these people in my life. Like, I'm starting to realize like I deserve way better than this.
yeah.
So, like, you do see the other side eventually when it comes to your friends, but it doesn't mean that you're still not hurt by what they did and you're still not shocked and appalled by what they did.
Yeah. And it doesn't make it any easier either to
Yeah.
feel like it was for the better.
I had so much clarity after those secondary losses of my friends. Like, eventually, when I had that clarity, I was like, I'm in a good place with my friends. Like, I know who my true friends are. I'm meeting new people who I'm realizing like this is the kind of people that I want to have as my close friends. I realized how good a small circle is and how much better it is than having like a big circle. And the friends that stood by me, and even like the friends who I hadn't talked to in a while, but kind of came out of the cracks and actually showed up for me, like, I'm like, okay, that's what a true friend is. Like,
Mhm.
I kind of lost my vision for a second because I wasn't realizing what a true friend was. But I think I kind of got back on track after those secondary losses, realizing who deserves my friendship. And maybe from an outside perspective, that sounds like a little conceited, but after I went through so much, in the end, it's really just, it all comes down to me protecting myself and only really giving people who deserve and who are trustworthy and who are like understanding. And like, those are such simple characteristics to have in a friend. Like, of course you want a friend who's nice and caring and understanding, but me back in the day, I was not thinking those things. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, it had to do with like the college mindset and like all those types of things. It wasn't like a mature friendship. And I see that now, but I did not see that before.
Yeah. I think like the aftermath of, especially for me, like losing them, I then like started to kind of throw myself into like filler friendships. Like, you know, they met me now at this point in my life. I didn't know them before. So it's like, that was almost easier for me to like, you know, meet new people and like go that route. But I mean, I definitely like became friends with people that probably weren't the healthiest kind of mindset for me. And so I like went through harsh times then after, like, you know, meeting people that maybe don't align with me and like really like going out and drinking and coping that way. And I mean, it lasted like a good couple months, but now it's almost like I sit here now and I don't have those like filler friends anymore. And I've chosen to like really focus on myself and like my health, that now I'm sitting here again with like no fucking plans or like friends again. So it's like that cycle. And like, I hope, you know, one day I'll meet people that like are genuine friends and all of that, but it's just hard because, you know, you like, you said you have all these friends, like, and then maybe acquaintances, and then something happens with one of them and then you lose all of them again. So it happened like 2 times kind of back to back. And now I'm just kind of like sitting here, I'm like, maybe I am better off on, like with the 2 friends that like I have and have had for years. So yeah. It's an interesting cycle, but
yeah, totally. I that's really relatable and understandable. And it's true. I mean, again, like it's just being in your 20s and everyone's always like, oh, friends are so hard at this age. And I'm like, yeah, it is hard. But I feel like in our situations, it's been like 10 times harder.
Right.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, and when you were first bringing up this topic, did you say that there was other friends who also were not acting right, or was it just these 2 girls from
Mostly
high
those
school?
2. I mean, definitely like, you know, that big girl group that we shared. Like, I mean, I probably maybe heard of like from the other girls right after my mom, like one time, probably the day of. And I get it. It's like, you know, I wasn't super close with them, but it's like, shit, like we still all hung out and like, you know, whatever. It's just like, I think you expect like so much like love and like, you know, people still checking in, and because you feel like, you know, your whole life is like stopped, and it maybe lasts like a few days after your like person passes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it felt like, okay, Julia's mom died. We're going to send cards and the normal stuff. And like in those first couple of days, I was really appreciative of that. But then once whatever else, you know, started trickling in to like their heads about me, then it was done. I had nothing.
Yeah. And of course, like I'll always appreciate them for like, you know, stepping up the way they did in that present moment. But I think what also people need to realize is like the pain and like the grieving doesn't stop because time has passed. I mean, I still even like today or like recently these past couple of days, like have been like grieving so bad. And it's still like, you know, you tell your friends that you're upset and they're like, oh my God, why? Or like, why are like, are you okay? And it's like, no, I'm not okay, just because like time has passed. And so I think that's what's like hard too, is it's like people almost seem like because it's been like 7 or 8 months, like, okay, like get back like to your regular life, or like, I don't know. It's just the weirdest like thing.
Yeah. And
Totally.
like, I think before this loss, I probably would have thought that 7 or 8 months like sounds like a lot, you know? But like having been through this experience, I know that that's like really not fucking anything, like, you know?
No.
And like, I don't know, maybe for you guys too, but for me, like time sped up. Like I don't even know how I even survived these past like almost 8 months. And when I look back, it's like time has gone by so quick, which almost I'm like feel guilty about. I'm like, I don't know. It's the weirdest mindset to have, but yeah, or like you said, like 8 months, maybe like before this, if someone said like, oh, I lost my mom like 8 months ago, I would think like, oh, like that's long. But like I sit here now, like finally now grieving and feeling emotions because I didn't the past 6 months. So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I think everybody deals with grief differently. And I think I completely relate in the sense of like throwing yourself into other things and kind of like distracting yourself, whether that's like doom scrolling on TikTok for hours or just like binge watching the same show or going out and doing things. Everybody has like different things, but I mean, I completely relate with that feeling of like distracting yourself almost, because I like kind of feel like it was weird for me because at first when I lost my dad, I was really feeling it and I couldn't really do anything. But then I guess like around the same time of like you start to feel this pressure of like I have to move on and I have to like show people that I'm like, not that anybody is watching you like this, but I don't know, I just felt like this pressure of like I have to show people that I'm like doing okay kind of. And so then starting from that point, I feel like I started to go into like an overdrive almost and like working so much and just filling up my days like so much to like show people that I'm doing okay when in reality I'm just like numb and distracting myself almost. And then once that kind of settles down again, you start to feel everything that you haven't felt in however long you were doing that. And it's like so overwhelming when that feeling settles in, you know?
Yeah. That like makes me think of like my dad after the fact of this and how like at 6 or 7 months, like I started to have a really hard time and like opened up about how I truthfully have been coping and like dealing with it. And it was like, it's been 6 months, like get over it. Like you should be fine by now, because he was like portraying how he's coping with it and
Right.
deciding to move on, that like I should be okay. But it's also like I lost my mom. Like I'm still a young like female trying to, figure it all out and like get through life. And so to like have your dad kind of like put a timeline on your grief is like just so fucked up. And that's something too, like that I've had to now like deal with. But
Yeah.
That's really invalidating and unfair.
Yeah.
That he said that to you. Like you said, though, it's just a projection of his own grief and how he's dealing with his own grief.
Right.
You take it really to the heart because it's from your dad.
Right.
And still that doesn't mean that it's true, but it does hurt just the same,
Yeah. And it's honestly like hard not to let it get to your head, because honestly, now that's making me think of something my sister said to me, which was she said something kind of similar about like moving on. Oh, she sent me two different memes that were like so directly like at me. So the first one was kind of like, don't let suffering be the only source of your art, or like don't try to suffer just for art or something. And I was like, bro, what are you?
The suffering making it your personality thing.
Yeah, she was kind of like that. And then she also said like, I don't want to see grief as your like only personality, or like don't make grief your personality. And it was just like, I'm doing this podcast and like I know I talk about grief a lot, but why shouldn't it be a part of my personality now? Like, like before my personality was having love for my dad, and that's now transformed into grief for my dad. And so why wouldn't it be a defining characteristic trait? Like when I meet people now, I like in the first couple times I meet them, I make sure to tell them like, this is something I'm going through, because it is that important to me. And I feel like it allows people to understand like where I'm at and who I am, because I think that it's so much of who I am now. I don't know. It's hard because it was from my own sister. So it's hard to like not take these things so personally because they know me really well. So I don't know. I
mean, honestly, Yaka, I think that's like really beautiful that you share that when you meet new people, when you're making new friends, like that shows like how genuine you are and how like you let people see the real you. Like you're not putting on like a mask for anyone, and like there's not a lot of people out there who are able to do that. And that's such a beautiful, amazing thing. Like I strive to be like that too, like to not have to feel like I'm hiding myself or hiding aspects of myself. Like when I meet someone and when I make a new friend, like I want my real self to be the friend, not like someone that I portrayed to be someone else. You know what I'm saying? So by like disclosing, like, this is who I am, like, this is a part of me, like, this is my journey that my mom died. And it's like very powerful to start off on that foot.
Yeah, I definitely relate to you in the fact of like being very open about it, because I want like new people I meet to know that like, you're meeting me at this point in my grief journey. Like, take it for how it is, take me for how it is. But I mean, me personally, I don't know if like you guys, but I like probably in the past couple of months have like started to kind of date again. And it's been very shocking to see. I mean, I leave it like on the table. Like I will tell you, I lost my mom like recently, like, this is how it is. And how many people almost like take that and like make it like, oh my God, like you need help, or like I'm going to get involved because like you're at this point. And it's just kind of been shocking of like how many people, I get they maybe don't want to deal with it, but it's like, I sit here and I'm like, oh my God, like, do I not like tell them that? Because it's gotten thrown again back in my face like so many times from like dating. So it's just so interesting.
It's so funny how there's so many similarities between like best friends and then like dating. People don't realize like they're both really close relationships. So like there are a lot of like similarities, but no, you're completely right. Like if you disclose that on a first date or a second date, something like that, they will react exactly how they're going to react, and that will show you who they are.
Exactly. Yeah. But also,
so like,
I think it's a good thing you say it on the first date because it weeds them out quick, and you don't spend your time wasting and dallying away, like spending all this energy into someone who isn't able to like handle something like that. So, I mean, when I started dating after my loss too, like I was telling people on the first date, like, and it helped that we were like always drinking a little bit too, that I would just like, tell them. And based on how they would react, like I would kind of know like, nah, this is not it. And then also like it's funny though, because you think the date went well and then they just like never hit you up again. And you're like, well, maybe that was too much for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely kills the vibe. But I mean, it's like, I don't want to like continue to date someone or like open up and get vulnerable if like you're going to act like I'm like need help during this. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. And
it's like condescending to say like you need help. Like, of course I need help. Like and
you need help too. Everyone needs
some sort of help. Like I think I'm doing pretty great for, the timeline and everything.
Exactly.
It's God. And it's funny because I mean, if once again like roles were reversed and I went on a first date with someone and they told me that, I'd be like, good for you, like you're strong, like you're trying to get through life and like still like have a job and like trying to still live life like to the fullest, because it's definitely changed my mindset of like how short like time can be. So like that's kind of been like my motivation. But it is funny how people are like, oh my God, like don't want to get involved with you because you're like unstable. So
and that shows their level of maturity. So it's perfect. They can go fuck off.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier about how your dad's like timeline, he like put a timeline on your grief, and he like said that terrible statement to you about how like you need to get over it. Like, was he quick to get over it? What was that? Where's that coming from exactly?
Yeah, I mean, as like I look back now, I think he definitely, maybe he's like grieving maybe now, but at those first couple months, I mean, I'm sure like, after the funeral, everyone went their own separate ways and he was alone. So I'm sure he did grieve in his own way, but it's definitely been a hard like timeline, especially with my dad, because so essentially my mom had a best friend back in the day, and she was married to my dad's best friend. So they were like two couples, and this is like young 20s, maybe like mid 20s. And they were all really close. And then my mom and dad had moved to Washington and started a family. And so there was some loss of contact there. But when my mom got sick, she had this friend, after like not talking for like 30 years, like offer to come be my mom's like caretaker. And at this time, she like didn't have a job. And so my dad had like, allowed her to come and like help him out, because when you're not like a caretaker and you see your wife as that, like that was, his own demons in battle to fight. But she essentially had helped my mom on and off when my mom was sick. And then when my mom was on hospice for a week. And during that week, like we stayed at my grandpa's house, and she had flown in because she was my mom's best friend. And she pretty much watched my mom die, spoke at the funeral. And looking back, I think it's funny because a lot of people had like mentioned to me, like, oh my God, like, is your dad and her like together? Like just the whole vibe I think people picked up on, but I never want to think of that. I'm in already such denial, and to even think of like my dad, starting to talk or be with someone else at that time was already just so much. And so essentially, like, they had gotten together and they are together. And this started, I was lied to for months, but pretty much it started like 3 months after my mom's death, and he moved her in. And yeah. So, and I think like he even still, denies like the timeline of it all, and still says to me, like, we're not together. But from other people, she says that they're like dating, and they travel together and they live together. And so it's just like the most twisted almost thing, because she like took care of my mom, watched my mom die, and then can like go fill this like life of my mom. Like she's almost living to be like, living in her home and driving her car and wearing her clothes. Like it's just the most like twisted thing. And my dad and I have always been so close, and I almost just for my own like mental health, I said, like, as long as she's in the picture, I can't talk or have a relationship with you, because like I'm already so hurt over my mom's death. And then just how like quickly he almost just like threw her away and like wanted to, start a new life and act like the past like 30 years of marriage with her like never happened. And I get everyone copes in their own way, but it's just so twisted on both of their parts. So
yeah, well, first I want to say like that's really amazing that you were able to set that boundary with your dad and kind of stand up for yourself and like separate yourself and tell him how you feel about that. Because there's like this misconception that just because they're family and you share blood, like you can't separate yourself from them, or like you have to do everything possible to make it work and stuff. But they're just like anybody else, and you're entitled to any boundary you need to set with your own family members too. And in this case, like it's completely valid. And is that, you said it's something he's still denying even though she like lives there and stuff? Like what even is that? I don't even know what why he
like I've had to ask him like so many times for my own self, like, just give me a straight up answer. Like, are you dating or are you not? Because at first it was like, she's coming to stay for a little to like watch the dog when I travel. And then it was like, oh, then she stayed there longer. And then it's like, I find out from other family members that like she's called them and just said like, I hope like our relationship has changed, like we're dating now. But he still like won't up and tell me when I'm like, it's just so just like messed up. And it's almost like I now like am not only grieving my mom, it's like now I like have lost a relationship with my dad.
True.
Yeah.
So,
and I think he owes you at least a straight up answer. And
of course,
at least from this person too, like your mom's best friend, supposedly, like, I think that they both need to like sit down with you and talk about how this is affecting you, because that's the least you deserve, is this clarity for yourself. And like, my mom kind of has not the same, but she moved on quick, and it was someone that I knew my whole life too. And what I told her was that I like need this person, the person that she's engaged to, like I need him to acknowledge the hurt that this has caused me, and I need him to apologize for it in order to feel like okay with this happening. And so I feel like like that needs to occur, I feel like, in order
No, it's funny because like a couple days ago, like some other things happened, but I had written her a text and said, like, you're a mother of your own. You have kids. Like, think about like, me and like my sister, two girls that are still younger, and like think of what you've done, first of all, but like at least acknowledge it, like
Right.
apologize. Like there has been no communication from her at all. And her response back was like, everyone's told me to give you time, like you'll come around to the idea. And I'm like, I'm never coming around to like the fact of you and my dad being together. Like, you want me to sit there at Thanksgiving and like, it's
Okay
just
with
like,
that? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be okay with it. And that's how I feel. And if you two like decide to do that, that's fine. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like involve myself and be fake and act like, oh, So it's just, yeah, there's still never been acknowledgement or like an apology from
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, and I think that acknowledgement is like so what you deserve. And I think, yeah, like with time, you might be more used to this, I guess, is the way to say it, because it's never going to be easy. And like, it's been like fucking, for me, it's been like, how long? It's been like 10 years almost of them together, and it still feels like a slap in the face to see every time. But at least like having that acknowledged, like having them acknowledge that to me that is what it is, like a slap in the face. It's a reminder that this person had an affair and was unfaithful to my dad, and this person was like a home wrecker in a sense. And like having him, he also said to me, like the guy that my mom is with now, he sat me down and was like, I know that I will never be your dad, kind of. And he was like, I know that I'll never be your dad, and I don't want to be your dad, and I will always be here for you though. And that was kind of like nice, even though I don't like him because of everything that he represents or like reminds me of too. But at least having that definitely helped. And I think like these people are adults, and there's like no excuse for their literal lack of understanding and social awareness of what's going on and how this is affecting you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, they're adults and they're 30 years older than us, yet we're still baffled by their emotional immaturity and their behavior, And it's so shocking, but at the same time, it's like this tale of like the caregiver and the grieving husband. Like, I've heard it so many times, and like I wish I could get like a psychologist on here or a sociologist on here to like explain why these things happen. And it's always like in a difficult circumstance. And I can tell by how you're describing like how they're hiding it, or like how he denies it, but she calls other people and discloses the relationship and stuff, yet he never does. Like, it does seem like they know that it's weird, or at least he knows that, because he's hiding it. And like it seems like he must know but doesn't want to like fully admit it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've just heard this similar story like several times. Like, I think it's definitely a pattern, and I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. Like,
Yeah.
it feels wrong. It feels like icky. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think just like the twisted part of it all is, I mean, even like still to this day, like she posts my mom like pictures of them when they were younger, like on Facebook, and like, I miss my best friend so much. And it's like, you're dating and sleeping with her husband that, you claim like it's just so weird. And like,
Yeah.
family pictures still up in the home. And it's like, it's just so bizarre. And I mean, as much as it like sucks, and I don't know personally anyone that like has even came across to this situation, and especially how quick it happened. Like, of course I want like my dad to be happy, but you also have to think like, the kids aren't going to be necessarily okay with you dating someone like so soon. But it was also the fact of someone that was so close to my mom is just like what makes me just so much like more mad and just hate this.
I'm really sorry to hear this.
it's really completely understandable, your reaction to it. I think that's
I mean, it's really upsetting even just to hear about. So having to live through it, like I just know that it's painful and horrible. And like you said, you are grieving two losses now, and that's
Exactly.
really horrible when they're your parents,
It's
Yeah.
already hard to see your other parent move on and maybe like start dating. Like some other young grievers that I've talked to, like I've heard the story of like, their dad starting to date or like going on dates or like dating apps and things like that. And like that's already really difficult to see and experience when a couple months before that you thought your parents were going to be together forever. And then all of a sudden, like it's just like not that anymore and it's completely different. But to have it be someone that you knew, someone that your mom knew and trusted, and to just add all these other intricacies, it just adds to an already difficult situation. And like, I think in this episode, we've touched on like so many different types of secondary loss. And like, this is one of them. Like, a lot of people think of you lost your mom and period, end of sentence. Like, she lost her mom. But like, in reality, like, we lost so much more.
Yeah. And we always talk about how like losing that person isn't even the worst part. The worst part is everything that comes after, all the grief, all the secondary losses, all the fucked up shit, all like the way life continues and like your world stops, like all of that pain is like literally the worst part of it, not just the initial loss. Like, yeah, the initial loss was horrible, but it's like the beginning of a really horrible, horrible period of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I don't know if it's worse or if it just it's bad and then it just keeps
yeah,
getting
exactly.
bad.
I was just
More, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said earlier about how like when you're like already down, you're already 6 feet under and you just keep getting dug under and like deeper and deeper. That's
Yeah,
pretty much what it is.
exactly. It's
It's like
getting
you're already
kicked
kicked down and
when
like
you're down.
now you're getting kicked down when you're already down. And it's like
Exactly.
you don't have the strength and ability to like stand up for yourself and you're just like getting fucking rocked by life.
It is truly unbearable.
Yeah. Yeah. Just when you think like the worst possible thing has happened, it can keep getting worse in the aftermath of it all. And just, yeah, it definitely,
Yeah.
it's rough.
Your worst case scenario happens and then stuff is piling on top of it. And like that is what makes grief so complicated. And I think that's why we have this podcast and why we like search for other resources, because like everyone, if you're human, is going to lose someone, but the intricacies of grief, the secondary losses, like all these, I don't know, I guess I'll just call them the phenomena of like friends betraying you, then your parents moving on in a certain way that you don't particularly agree with. And like, because I have this podcast, I hear a lot of different grief stories of 20-year-olds, and like these things are really common. And like, these are the things that we don't talk about, yet these are the things that we need to talk about, because I mean, we just want people to know that they're not alone. Like other people have felt this way before too.
Yeah. And you guys have done like a great job on shedding light to that, because never like when you're in it do you think someone else's story is linear, but there are people out there that can definitely relate. And it brings like a comfort of like, oh, like my life isn't the only one that's fucked.
Yeah, and also the stories aren't always the exact same, but like some of the stuff that we go through are.
Yeah, exactly.
Real. So I mean, we can all relate to the feeling of like having some terrible shit happen to you.
Yeah.
And so
I think it's hard too, like when you have friends around you that, I know no one's life is perfect, but it's like they've never had to experience anything like remotely close to like what you've gone through. It's just like hard to find that relate like aspect of it.
Definitely puts like a
like
level
jealousy almost. I mean, I know I'm
jealous
of friends, and I'm
for
like,
sure.
That's your biggest issue this week. Like,
exactly.
Be nice. I would trade anything to, be where
yes, I feel that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the podcast tour for Terrible Thanks for Asking, which is like another grief podcast that I really like. And she had a segment of her show about you're not special. And it's like supposed to be very like dark humor, like comedy type So she was saying like, oh, you're not special, right? Because like you said, like a lot of other people's lives are fucked. Like it's not just ours. And it like created a sense of like unity in a way, and a sense of like, okay, like, I'm not alone in my suffering. But then like you are special too at the same time, because no one is going through the exact same thing as you. Like we have a lot of similarities, and hearing all the stories, like there's a lot of similarities, but not anything like to the T specific, So like you are special and you're not alone in the things that you're experiencing and feeling, but at the same time, like you can never really fully like explain to anyone exactly what you've been through, because it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, like the cards that we are all dealt are, like we always fucking say, are not hands that we picked, but at the same time we have no choice but to continue. Like when we wake up the next day, we're there, and that's just how it goes. And so you have to kind of find some ways to like continue, whether that is like one of our only choices, is having to continue. And so I mean, there's a lot of learning in that. Like you said, you like did things or like coped in ways that you didn't think were best for you, and maybe were deemed like unhealthy, but at the same time, like that's still a valid way to cope with shit, because a lot of people like turn to shit like that too. And I think that's like a whole another topic, but I don't know, it's like a lot of learning about yourself, learning how to set boundaries, like you said, and learning stuff that you don't even want to fucking learn, to be honest. But at the same time, like now these things. And that's why also, like when you're 20 and you've experienced a loss, like you just are so much more emotionally mature than a lot of people our age, because you were forced to kind of figure these things out at like a much younger and quicker rate than some of our peers, because they don't have to figure this shit out until it happens to them when they're fucking like 40 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's funny when people like say like, oh my God, you're so strong, like you're so independent. It's like, yeah, I've fucking had to be. Like, I don't now have anyone, I got to figure it out on my own. And like, I got to get through all the things that have came with it. But yeah, there's like no other way too.
Exactly. There's no other option. Trust me, I wish I could be living my blissful 23-year-old, traveling with no anxiety and like living life with no fucking depression.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just not my reality, unfortunately. It's other people's reality, and I'm fucking jealous, and I want to be you, but it's not the cards that I was dealt, and I will forever hate that shit, and I will forever resent the fact that I felt like my 20s were like basically taken away from me, along with everything else, including my right to have a mom.
Yeah.
The final thing we like to ask our guests is if there's anything you want to share about your mom, what she loved, what she was like with you growing up, her life, her characteristics, anything you want to share with
just
about
what your
her
mom
at
was
all.
like.
Yeah, my mom, like if I had to like paint a picture of like the most peaceful, positive person, like was her. I mean, she like tried. So my mom, she tried for probably like 8 or 9 years to have kids and never could. So my parents had IVF, which is how me and my 2 other siblings got here. And so it was like always in her to be a mom and have a family. And she wanted that so bad. And she lived up to that like every possible way. And it's funny because I like until now, like I always thought I would never have kids. Like I never wanted to be a mom. I never thought that was like in my future. And after my mom passing, I'm like, I want that now more than I ever have before, in the way of like, like being as great of a mom as she was. And because like she always wanted to like see us like have grandkids and she can't. So yeah, but she was just so positive and uplifting, and like whoever has met her could say like she was the nicest, like most welcoming person. So yeah,
I'm really glad that she was your mom, that you had a really good mom growing up.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. She sounds amazing. And honestly, I'm just so fucking sorry. Like, I hate when people say that to me, but I'm gonna still say it to you because I just feel like this fucking sucks. And I hate that it happened to me, but I hate even more that it happens to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the anger to, I mean, whoever might be listening to this, that, you know, your parent gets sick and there's no diagnosis, and, you know, the doctors and nurses almost make it seem like you guys are fucking crazy for like,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
tests done, and so much time spent in and out of hospitals, and people are like, there's nothing wrong with her, there's nothing wrong with her, but clearly there is. Like, I just wish like there's more light spread on that, because it is, I know, so normal, but
Mhm.
We are like advocates in the medical field.
yeah. So yeah, it just sucks that, you know, they couldn't find anything, but
So many unanswered questions that like cause you to spiral, I'm sure.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I am also sorry that this is happening to you. I hate so much that these things happen and like they're so fucking painful, and like you often just feel so alone because of the way they happen and the uniqueness to you and stuff. But yeah, I'm really honestly really thankful and grateful and honored that you felt comfortable to share your story with us and just spend your time and take your time to be with us today. So I want to thank you for that and being so raw and vulnerable with us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, and I hope someone listening, like, there's a part of you that can relate, because I know I found your guys' podcast in a time where I didn't think anything was relatable, and especially secondary losses, and you guys shed light on that, and, you know, made me realize that other people do go through similar things even after the worst thing that's happened. So
Totally.
Well, I think that's it for this episode, you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.